Testament places a greater emphasis upon character than upon gift. In fact, the 15 characteristics that are here before us in this little section, of the 15 characteristics, only one of them has to do with gift, namely, able to teach. The remaining 14 all have to do with godly living. And that in itself ought to be a salutary reminder to us. When you take this passage and you view it in conjunction with the verses in Titus chapter 1, verses 6 to 9, the whole emphasis is upon personal qualities. And in point of fact, the most important contribution that the elders make to any company of God's people is the contribution that is made on the basis of their personal godliness. And that is why these verses are a tough mirror into which we're called to look. Now, if you want to broaden it, as we should, he was thinking of a local parish in the Anglican Church which would be very one-man focused as a result of all kinds of misunderstandings, etc., into which we needn't go. But when we broaden it out, we need to recognize that generally speaking, as are the elders, so are the people. If you have godly elders, you will have godly people. If you have evangelizing elders, you will have evangelizing people. If you have kindly elders, you will have kindly people. If you have hospitable elders, you will have hospitable people. Because the church cannot progress beyond the level of the leadership. The kind of dad you have is the kind of family you have. Yes, the mother too, but the father marks the place. If he is jovial or gloomy, if he is smart or dumb, if he, whatever he is, he presents an aura upon the place. And that's what makes it so staggering. That's what makes it so painful at any point in ministry to read this. In my present position, I'd rather pass this off to any of the other elders and say, go ahead, do 1 Timothy 3 for me, would you? I'd like to listen. My throat's a little ticklish. I would rather you had a crack at this. Because the character that is called for here is a character that is not to appear in fits and starts, but it is a character that is to be maintained for all of the life of the man in service. The qualities of godly living are not supposed to be there in bursts of enthusiasm followed by periods of chronic inertia. Now you see it, now you don't. But it is to be sustained in the same way as when we get married, they ask you the question, or you have to say the phrase, so long as we both shall live, or till death us do part. In other words, this is not just a week at a time and see how you feel next week. This is 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for the rest of your life. You have to stay pure forever. Now, Paul understood the challenge of this. That's why in 1 Corinthians 9, as he gets to the end of it, he says, I don't want any of you folks to think that I'm just a shadow boxer in relationship to this. I don't want you to think that I simply bought a tracksuit to hang in my closet, but I don't go running. No, he said, listen, I don't run like a man running aimlessly. I don't fight like a man beating the air. I beat my body and I make it my slave. Why? So that after I have preached to others, I myself will not be disqualified from the prize. It's not an issue of giftedness, it's an issue of character. There are plenty of guys who still are gifted in speaking, but they have violated the characteristics that demand leadership in the church. Therefore, they're done. We make the mistake of assuming that because the gift remains, they stay. No. Because the qualities of godliness are the very seed beds in which any sense of giftedness is to be worked out. That's why James says, let not many of you become teachers, because he who teaches will be judged with greater strictness. Christian leaders are not perfect. Let's make sure we understand that. And Christian leaders are not called to pretend that they're perfect. Let's make sure we understand that too. Because if nobody else understands it, our kids will understand it, our wives will understand it. But we are called to an unequaled privilege and to a peculiar responsibility in relationship to these things. When a Christian falls into sin, he hurts other people. When a Christian leader falls into sin, he hurts many other people. When a big tree falls in the forest, it brings down a ton of wee trees with it. And that's the challenge here. And that's why we say again and again, let's be real clear. Lest anybody thinks he stands, well, take heed lest he falls, you know. And Paul Simon, in his song, he says, I don't want to end up a cartoon in a cartoon graveyard. I don't want to end up a cartoon in Leadership magazine. A sorry story. That's why God gives us this instruction. And so we're going to go through it. We're going to go above it at about 12,000 feet. We won't go quite up to 30, but we're not going to dismantle all the leaves and branches, you will be pleased to know, especially if you look at your watch. Verse 1 makes it clear that we shouldn't be afraid of Christian leadership, as if somehow or another it's not really Christian to want to lead. That's just false modesty. That's not true to our personality. Not everybody aspires to leadership, but for those who do aspire to leadership, they ought to be honest enough to say, I aspire to leadership. The question is then whether you should lead. Well, you're allowed to say, I aspire to leadership. And in fact, it will be obvious, because you'll be leading people. When you suggest something, people follow. When you say, I think we might go there, they say, that's a great idea, let's go there. When you say, I don't think we ought to do that, they say, I thought that was a super idea, let's not do that. So to aspire to leadership is not wrong. What we need to do when we're thinking in these terms, though, is in concurrence with what we said last Sunday evening, think in terms of service, don't think in terms of status. And the responsibility is the responsibility of being an overseer. That word is episkopoi here, from which you get episcopal. The synonyms are presbyteroi, from which you get presbyter, as most of us know, and poimen, from which you get shepherd or pastor. So the word pastor, presbyter, bishop, overseer, elder, or any other synonym you might think of, are all used to describe the same task. And the distinction that we'll come to in chapter 5 between those who are set apart and receive remuneration for the fulfilling of the task and those who do not but serve in their normal workaday routine still as elders, the distinction there has nothing whatsoever to do with a higher standard or a lower standard or a greater status or a lesser status, or somehow or another that if you're not paid for it, you don't have to have the same qualifications as if you're paid for it. The bad news is, you got to do it, and you're held to the same qualifications. And you don't get the luxury of studying your Bible every day to that degree. That's why those of us who do get the luxury of our Bible every day jolly well better study our Bible every day. Otherwise, why would anybody set money aside to provide us the privilege if we ended up spending our time as office managers or administrators instead of being pastors and teachers as the Word calls us to be? You will notice that it is a task. It's a noble task, but it's still a task. That task is just another word for a job. If you desire to be an overseer, you desire a noble job. It's a task. Don't kid yourself. You don't know that? We can help you. Verse 2, what should mark this overseer? Well, he should be above reproach. Above reproach. In other words, he is not to be open to attack or criticism in terms of his Christian life in general and in terms of the characteristics which now follow. There's a sense in which a colon after reproach might be quite helpful, and then we might view these other characteristics as an explication of what it means to be above reproach. Someone says, well, what does it mean to be above reproach? Well, they say, well, it's the husband of one wife, temperate, self-controlled, respectable, and so on. It is a comma, it's not a colon, but you might think of it in that way. Again, we should note that it doesn't mean perfect. But it does mean that no one, either within the church or out with the church, is able to point to an open, flagrant violation that is an endemic part of the individual's character, that is consistently there, about which he is unrepentant, from which he refuses to remove, and he believes that he can continue in his own merry way and still fulfill the role of eldership. Let me give you a classic illustration. Somewhere down in closer to the city, some gentleman had decided that he liked a lady in the choir better than he liked his wife. First of all, he started by lying about it, and then he fessed up to it. And after he fessed up to it, he tried to get a little group within the church to keep him as the pastor. And they had all these meetings and dialogues and back and forth to see whether he should stay or whether he shouldn't stay. And some quoted the Constitution, and some quoted the American Constitution, and some quoted books and all manner of stuff. But there wasn't a single soul who quoted 1 Timothy chapter 3, verse 2. If they had done, it would have been a very short meeting. Goodbye, Charlie. Thanks a lot. Don't let the door hit you on the way out. You're done. Because it is glaringly inconsistent. You can't do this and say you're above reproach. It'd be the same thing if your name kept appearing in the newspaper. That every year you never paid your taxes. And you just kept amassing and amassing and amassing a big tax bill. And it was a bit of a joke. You know, people said, oh, let's look in the plain dealer and see if he's in again. And people said, there he is again. Well, you're done. Because there's not any reproachability about you. Now, again, we're not saying perfection. Trapp, the commentator, who is a wonderful old guy. I mean, very old, he's dead. But he says some wonderful things. He said, Every faithful pastor must be such as against whom no just exception can be laid, no gross fault objected. Involuntary failings and unavoidable infirmities have a pardon, of course, both with God and with all good men. So in other words, he's distinguishing, as you rightfully must do, because otherwise the quest is for perfection. He's distinguishing between gross faults, justifiable glaring exceptions, and involuntary failings and unavoidable infirmities. Now, the challenge in this, of course, is who's setting the beam? And there's always a difference when we're setting it for ourselves or setting it for somebody else. And the same thing happens. For example, just recently, somebody wrote to me from the radio program to say what a bad pastor I was. Now, I understand that. And it was, kind of nice to have it reinforced. But the point of emphasis in this letter was the story that I told to you folks concerning the $64 pizza, if you will remember, which had to do with a speeding ticket in Sugar and Falls, followed by my desire to reroute the traffic flow in the center of Solon. So they wrote to say, one, if you were a proper, decent 1 Timothy 3:2 pastor, 1, you wouldn't have got a speeding ticket. 2, you wouldn't have tried to cut through the thing. And 3, you would have been appalled that your congregation laughed when you told them. Now, what do I say to that? I say, woo. And I listen. And maybe that's right. But it was honest. I could have pretended to you that I didn't speed and I didn't cut through, and I never once thought of telling lies to the cop when he caught me. Then you might have been tempted to think that not only do I wear this black suit when I'm preaching, but I wear it to my bed. And that I have my house set up in the Stations of the Cross. And that I'm really, really, really weirdly holy.
Listening to Truth for Life. That is Alistair Begg reminding us that what we're looking for as we look for people to lead local churches is not absolute perfection, but godly character. We'll hear more from Alistair tomorrow. Here at Truth for Life, we teach the Bible every day. In fact, our singular mission is to open the Bible each day so that all who listen will come to a better understanding of God's Word, what it teaches, how to apply it in our lives. And we do this, of course, with God's help, trusting that His Spirit will do the work to convert unbelievers, to deeply establish those who already believe in their faith, and to encourage pastors to stay committed to teaching the Scripture. The Ministry of Truth for Life is entirely listener-funded. These daily programs come to you by way of many faithful listeners who we call Truth Partners. These are people who are passionate about seeing others become followers of Jesus. Truth Partners are a vital team of listeners just like you who give each month and who pray for this ministry. If you've been looking for a way to share the gospel with others, know that as you give to Truth for Life, we're helping deliver sound biblical teaching to a worldwide audience. So if you've been listening to and benefiting from this program, will you become a Truth Partner today? You can sign up through the mobile app or online at truthforlife.org/truthpartner or call us at 888-588-7884. One of the ways we say thank you to our Truth Partners each month is by making available 2 books that we recommend. Today we are highlighting a book called How Christianity Transformed the World. We realize we're living in a time when the perception of Christian values isn't necessarily favorable. The truth is, Christian values have shaped our modern world in a positive way. The book, How Christianity Transformed the World, profiles some of the men and women from throughout the centuries who have influenced education, medicine, philanthropy, and human rights. The book provides an historical overview of how Christians and Christian beliefs have shaped our contemporary culture. Request the book, How Christianity Transformed the World, when you become a Truth Partner or when you give a one-time donation at truthforlife.org/donate. I'm Bob Lepine. Thanks for listening today. When choosing church elders, there are certainly virtues we should be looking for, but it's equally important to be on the lookout for vices to be avoided. Find out more about that tomorrow. The Bible teaching of Alistair Begg is furnished by Truth for Life, where the learning is for living.
90.5 KTXG Greenville, Dallas.
Hamilton III.
If you really want to see the tides turning in our country, can I challenge you and encourage you? If the Lord can grab a hold of us in our family, you would see the tide in our politics turn.
The Hamilton Corner, weekday afternoons at 5 Central on American Family Radio.
This is American Family Radio, a listener-supported ministry of the American Family Association.
American Family News, I'm Rusty Pugh. Another Republican has thrown his hat into the ring. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina has announced he's running for president. He made the announcement in North Charleston today, remembering what his grandfather taught him, that in America, anything is possible.
We live in the land of opportunity. We live in the land where it is absolutely possible for a kid raised in poverty, in a single-parent household, in a small apartment, to one day serve in the People's House, and maybe even the White House. And today, I'm living proof that America is the land of opportunity and not a land of oppression.
And everyone wants to know, when will Ron DeSantis make an official announcement that he's running for president? The Florida governor was a guest on Jenna Ellis on AFR this morning.
I would just tell people, stay tuned. I think we all understand the country is going in the wrong direction. People see that. When I ran for re-election, the majority of Floridians thought Florida was going in the right direction, and a huge majority thought America was going in the wrong direction. So you see the difference between good governance and what that can do, and poor leadership and poor governance. And I would just tell people, it doesn't have to be this way. I think Florida showed that there's a path to succeed and to do really big things, and we will have an announcement shortly.
The House Judiciary Subcommittee held a hearing Thursday with 3 whistleblowers alleging political bias in the FBI. Garrett O'Boyle was one of those whistleblowers, and he explains what's next for him.
I'm going to now keep speaking out about these problems in the FBI. I'm going to continue to try to fight and get my job back. I won't hold my breath there, because I'm sure they are going to ramp up the pressure to try to get rid of me even more now.
An organization that endorses military chaplains is supporting the efforts of Alabama Senator Tommy Tuberville to stop taxpayer money from being used to fund abortions at the Veterans Administration. Chad Groening has more.
23 conservative lawmakers are rallying behind Tuberville's effort to overturn the new Department of Defense abortion policy, which allows taxpayer-funded travel and leave time for service members and their dependents who wish to get an abortion for any reason. Tuberville has carried out his pledge to put a hold on all civilian and flag officer nominees last week on the U.S. Senate floor. Bishop Derek Jones is executive director of the Chaplain Alliance for Religious Liberty. His organization is all behind